What is happening, people? Chat and Pony's back. It's been a while again, but just getting things sorted. It's hard work now with 2 babies. Never mind getting podcast studios and that done. But look where we are. We're in Malibu this weekend. We thought we'd get a unbelievable little setup going. Look at the view behind us. We're camping at the minute on a little campsite in Malibu, and we've been gifted some stuff off OVS. You know, I'm not much of a camper. I'm a first-time camper, but my boy here, who I'm introducing, Chasen Blair, you're an avid camper, aren't you, lad?
Yeah, brother. Me and my girlfriend going camping the last few months. We've been going up and down the California coast. Got up to Montana de Oro, San Clemente, San Onofre, and it's awesome to be here in Malibu. Get it in. Got a little setup going. Little blue belt setup right now. Nothing like this OVS situation y'all got going on.
This is proper 2nd degree black belt.
Yeah, right.
Lad, when you turned up yesterday and you started pulling stuff out the van, I was like, oh, he's done this before. I've never done this before, so I was like, Graham, what do we do here? What do we do there? I'm shouting you over, hey, what do we do here, Chase? You're like, oh, just do this, just do that.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of YouTube videos. You're like looking, going on Reddit, doing all that.
Yeah, camping ain't so big in Liverpool, lad, but you can understand what everyone wants to do in California when you can come to places like this.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So yeah, OVS, my man here, like, you know, as you know, I'm a first-time camper and we got the naughtiest setup ever. My man here is fighting on a Dana White Contender Series soon, so Chasen's going to be checking his DMs, going to be seeing when OVS are going to get in there. But obviously that's the main thing we need to talk about, isn't it, lad? Fighting on, well, saying that, I never go, we're jumping ahead. Let's go back to the start. How did you get into combat sports in general?
So I got started in combat sports when I was 4 years old. When I was a kid, all I wanted to be was a Power Ranger when I grew up. So I just was like punching, kicking everything, and my parents were like, oh, like, let's get him doing karate or whatever. And so I started training karate, and my dad had wrestled when he was in high school, and the karate dojo I was training at, there was an instructor there, Kim Marquardt, but he was a black belt in judo and in BJJ, and so my dad, being at the dojo all the time, got into it, and then, you know, whenever your dad gets into something, you want to get into it, and so I just kind of became obsessed with it, and my dad actually got his, he started like reffing jiu-jitsu tournaments so I could get like free comp, you know what I mean? Because those tournaments add up, like they're not cheap, you know? So he would be like, hey, if I ref for the day, can my son get competition like entry free covered? So I'd be able to get 3 to 5 matches, gi and no gi. So there's like 5-6 matches on the Saturday, and then Sundays I'd get in, start doing wrestling tournaments, and there's like 3 to 5 matches. So now you're getting like 10-15 matches a week, just week in, week out. So then you're just getting that mat experience all the time and everything. So
yeah, that was a good idea from your dad, that though. You've done it the other way around. My dad now watches fights just because I got him into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wouldn't even know what MMA was if it wasn't for me. But obviously you wrestled at a good level, didn't you?
Yeah, so I wrestled basically my whole life. So from like 10 years old up through high school, I wrestled in college at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and then my mom's full Filipino, so I have dual citizenship with the Philippines, and so 2019 I wrestled at the U23 World Championship for the Philippines, Budapest, Hungary, and then shortly after I finished college, it was like during COVID, is kind of when we met, and then that's when I started making that transition into MMA and everything.
Well, that's what we were gonna move on to shortly, but lad, I think I was talking to Mark about it the other day. You got a proper baptism of fire, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
I'd never fought MMA before, and come over to NextGen and started training with us. Being one of my main sparring partners.
It was awesome though. That's how you find out whether or not you really love it, and that was just a cool experience, like going over there and, you know, already seeing like the level, right? It was cool because when I started, that's like Luke Riley had like, I think only like 2 pro fights maybe on Cage Warriors, Adam Cullen, Nathan Fletcher, you know, so all the guys were all similar age. They already had some more experience and stuff, but it was just cool like I think even the night I made my debut, I think there were 7 guys from NextGen. That's when they did the 2-day card, and
Yeah,
there was
on the
like all
Manchester.
finishes,
Yeah.
like between the one day I fought, I think there was like 14 finishes in a row or something. It was crazy.
But yeah, as I say, lad, you hadn't even had an amateur fight, had you?
No, I didn't know amateur fights, and I remember the first time I'd ever even sparred in a cage was against you, and I think John Gooden was there, and there was just like the whole like upstairs at NextGen was just like dead packed, and I remember getting in the cage, I had my headgear on, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna find out if this for me today.
John Gooden in there for UFC embedded.
Yeah.
Chasen's never sparred before, just gets in there with a guard on like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, let's go. And if you don't know, but anyone who's watched the channel before will know, NextGen's cage is like a fucking phone booth.
Oh yeah, it's about the size
Yeah,
of it.
it's about the size.
Of this little canopy.
It's about the size of this little thing, the truck, lad. Really, our cage is tiny, lad. You know, if you want to be a fighter when you do some sparring rounds in there, lad.
Oh yeah, but that cage has seen some awesome rounds.
Yeah.
Just from the time I've been in there, those are pay-per-view rounds.
Yeah,
you know?
they are pay-per-view rounds, lad. People always comment that on the channel, lad. Oh, I wish we could watch some of these rounds. I wish we could pay to see some of these rounds when like there's little clips of me fighting with Cullen or with Luke and yourself and shit like that. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously you came over, you started training with us. And I've got to ask you that, lad. What was life like for a San Diegan living in Liverpool?
Oh, that was the first week. I was like, I remember just being at the gym, and more Ellis than Paul, but Ellis would be saying stuff like we're doing the striking drills, and I'd be like, what the fuck do you want me to do?
What did he just say?
I'm just like looking around. I'm like just trying to. I'm like watching everybody else, and I'm like, all right, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, L's extra scouse like myself. We're rims from the world, lad. He's a little bit more English. You know what I mean? Where we don't speak proper English.
So just like learning even all the terminology and stuff, like all the vocab. I remember the first time you're like, oh, you want to go for a scran? And I was like, the fuck? What does that even mean?
What's a scran?
I was like, what?
See, I just think terms like that are just normal, you know. I say that to people, like I've said that to other people from America. I go, what's that like? That scran? Like, what? The fuck's a scran? Swear we have some mad ones. Another one I always say to Americans, lad, is, oh yeah, cushy that. And they go, the fuck's cushy? I'm like, oh, it means like good. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, as I was saying, get on to your career. You done the same as like Nathan, Luke, Cullen. You had your debut on Cage Warriors.
Yeah.
All your fights have been on Cage Warriors.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I always say to the younger fighters now coming through, that's what you want. You know what I mean? You want to be fighting on a good show from day one. You don't want to be fighting on one of these little snide shows when you can get on a show like Cage Warriors. And as we were saying, yours was at welter, wasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I made my debut at welterweight, and that's what it was crazy enough too. Is it wasn't even like, you know, most people when they have their first pro fight, it'll be like in their hometown or around somewhere. It was my first fight was in Manchester, and you know, Manchester for cage warriors, they go crazy. And so I was like on the second, third fight on the prelim, and it was still filled up at the BEC or whatever.
Yeah.
It was still packed in there, and I remember being in the back, and I was like, oh my God, I'm really about to be in like a fish fight right now in a cage, and there's a full crowd, and like I just remember it was like one of those things I'd always like wanted to do, and then I got to that moment, and then just being like, I'm like on the whole other side of the world, like just my dad, my sister, and my stepmom had come out for the fight, and it was just a surreal experience. But when like the production value with Cage Warriors, like the competition level, the size of the octagon, like the size of the cage and all that sort of stuff is so similar to the UFC that it's truly even just like the having all the cameras and the way they do like some of the lead ups and all that sort of stuff.
The VTs and the walkouts and all
like
that.
So it's preparing you for that, and that's what you want. And even the competition level, right? You want to be competing against guys that are testing you and as you're building and going through your career, and like you want those ups, downs, everything in between. And Cage Warriors for me has been an excellent, awesome experience, and I've learned so much on it.
What was that like though, lad? Obviously, as you say, your debut, you'd never fought before, never even had an amateur fight. And then your first professional fight, you're fighting in Manchester, halfway across the world, to where like you live, where you grew up.
That's what was crazy.
Not many people can say that they've had sort of like that. Everyone normally has the first fight in the hometown.
Yeah, that was. I remember doing the walkout, and I just Jake was there, and then Paul and Ellis walked out with me. But walking even through, and then they have like the little gates there, but they're all like kind of swarming. Yeah, everyone's like kind of. Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I just need to like dial in like this. I don't even want to look, you know what I mean? Just get focused. And then they did like the announcements and everything. And I was like, oh wow, like this is it. And like it gets loud, you know what I mean? That's what, because I was thinking like, oh, like I'll be on the prelims, like, you know what I mean? Like but I'm saying when the bus had even pulled up, like the coach had gotten there was people around the BEC waiting to get in. Like it was already packed when we had already gotten there. And once I got in the cage, first thing right away, touch gloves. The guy kicks me right in the arm, and I can just feel like my hand, like my pinky go numb. And I was like, "That's it. I'm taking this guy down."
Yeah, you got finished fast though, didn't you?
Yeah, I got from guard, got a little TKO first round, but I wasn't even sure if I was gonna end up fighting on that card because I'd come out to train with you and everything, and there was no guarantee I'd be able to get an opportunity just because Manchester, those cards get so booked out.
Yeah, there's so many fights on them.
Yeah, and then it was just I think it was on the Tuesday was when I found out, hey, there's an opportunity for you to fight on this card. Like, would you want to be down to fight on the Saturday? And I was like, yeah, like I'm all in. Like I'd love to do it. And so props to him for taking that short notice fight and everything. And from there, I was fighting basically every 2 months. I was fighting. Then I had a little year layoff, and then last year I fought 5 times in 10 months, which was crazy. So just staying as active and trying to get as much experience as I could. But you had like what, before you were in the UFC, like 20 pro fights or 18?
Yeah, I had, before I got in the UFC, I had 19 pro fights. I think it was. Yeah, I was 16-3, and then I went to UFC, and nearly all my fights are on Cage Warriors. Only 5 of them wasn't, because when I went pro when I was 17, my first 3 had to be on a different show because Cage Warriors is too professional to have a 17-year-old on the roster. I had to get some wins in as a 17-year-old first, and then when Cage Warriors had a little hiatus, I had 2 fights not on Cage Warriors, so I have 14 fights on Cage Warriors, lad. Wow. And I always say that got me ready for the UFC. Like, as you 100%. Say there, Cage Warriors, like the UFC is the biggest show in the world. It always will be. I don't think any show's ever going to rival it. But some people do just buy tickets to go and see the main card. Yeah. Like when you watch some of the UFC, sometimes the arena's half empty. And the prelims are on. But as you said, you were third fight. And in Cage Warriors at Manchester, lad, it's already rammed. Everyone's already there. It's already jam-packed out. Yeah. Because people are going to watch people you know, or because it's a local show, people get there early. And like that, I think that's like the difference between like Cage Warriors and the UFC. That from the first fight, Cage Warriors is rammed because people are going to support people you know, and it gets you ready, lad. Gets you ready 100%. For the UFC. A lot of these people want to fight on other shows and then go to the UFC. I don't think they do that well because they're not used to the atmosphere. They can't cope with it. Where Cage Warriors gives you that atmosphere. I always say it's the biggest show in Europe. If you're in Europe and you want to get in the UFC, you need to fight on Cage Warriors. But it's doing the same in America now. Look at yourself. You know what I mean? The shows in San Diego and stuff. Yeah. Having the shows in San Diego, and then I was fortunate enough, I even had the opportunities to, do my training camps here, then fly over, which is, something you do like at the UFC level. So to already have that kind of experience of like doing a training camp, then having to adjust not only are you cutting weight, not only are you nervous that you have like fight nerves and like all that other stuff, but then you're like, oh, I got a water load while I'm like flying over. I remember one of my first times flying over is my first time making 155. I was fighting I thought I was fighting in Newcastle, but on the flight over, I had water loaded, and then we were like over the Atlantic, so we're like probably halfway through the flight, but then all of a sudden we hit turbulence. But when you're like water loading, you have to go to the bathroom all the time. And so we're going over and we're starting to get turbulence, and then there's like please fasten your seatbelt, so you're not getting up. So I'm like in the seatbelt and I'm like strapped in, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna wait this out and then I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And then we're like maybe like 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, like come on, dude, like we're like, when am I gonna be able to get up? Then probably about like 30 minutes in, I was like, I'm about to piss my pants in the seat. Like there's no way. I start taking the seatbelt off and I start getting up,
And the lady's like, sir, please sit down. And I was like, there's no way. I'm a grown man. I'm not pissing my pants on the plane. I don't care if I get launched through I don't care if my head hits the ceiling of this airplane right now. I'm not going out like this.
You've never told me that one before, you know.
So I went to the bathroom. And I was able to, and it ended up working out. But that's like another part of the experience, because there, you know, there's when you have to deal with like the water loading, and then even like the time change, right? There's for San Diego to the UK, it's 8-hour time change. So once you land, and then you're in a calorie deficit and everything like that, so you already don't feel that great, and then you're not getting good. You know, you're trying to get the best sleep you can because you're getting ready to fight, and you're going through all that stuff.
Yeah, when I go over from San Diego, I just feel like a time traveller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go forward 8 hours.
Yeah.
But with the flight time, you go forward like 20 hours. So when you took off, you're like, wow, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's 100%. That's what, because like sometimes I think the red eye flights help out. It's just like trying to stay up once we land, because you'll leave here at like night, and then you'll get over there like mid-afternoon. It'll be like 4 o'clock by the time, because then you still have to get all your check bags, and then you get to the hotel and all that other stuff. But like by the time you finally get to the hotel, you're like, I just want to lay down. But then you're like, as soon as you lay down, it's done. You're going to sleep, and then you're gonna wake up at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and you're like, why'd I do that? You know.
See, that's just before I forget, lad. That's like when I say scran or custody. The first ever time I heard an American say a red eye flight, I was like, what? A red eye flight? What are you on about? Like, oh, nighttime flight. I was like, a night flight. We just call that a night flight. You know what I mean? The first ever time I heard red eye flight, it was like, the fuck's he talking about? I'm sure it was Graham what said it to me as well. Oh, red eye. I was like, the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck's a red eye? I mean, it's like, my eyes are blue. What the fuck's a red eye like, lad? But what was that first weight cut like down to 155?
The first weight cut was definitely tough, but I think that's just more of
getting used to it.
Yeah, it's more of the unknown, and I think every time you do it, it gets easier. And I think especially too, like just with the traveling and like the water loading, and then especially like that first fight week making 155, I'd fallen asleep earlier, like right when I landed, because I was just so exhausted. Then I was like up in the middle of the night, and I'm on myself, and I'm like, oh, am I gonna make this weight? You know what I mean? You're just like, you start getting paranoid. You're like talking to yourself, and you're like, nah, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be fine. You know what I mean? Like you've done all the work and like done all that sort of stuff, but that's just kind of like, you know, there's like that little self-doubt in the back of your mind, like especially because it's the first time, because you've never done it before. And like at that point, I hadn't been at that weight since I was like a freshman in high school. I was like 15 years old the last time I competed at 154. I wrestled at 154 pounds, so I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make 156 or whatever?
I do that where like 3-4 weeks out, I get to every single time, and everyone laughs at me now, because every single time when I'm that far out, I'm like, I'm not gonna make weight. It's not coming down. It's not coming down. I'm not gonna make it. And Paul Reed and Rimmer and Ellis and that just laugh at me now, because they're like, lad, you do this every camp, and then it just drops. So what are you bitching for? And I'm like, nah, we're gonna have to ask for the catch weight. I'm not gonna make it. Know what I mean? And then every single time, I make it easy.
Yeah, that's just part of the process.
It's all up here, lad.
Yeah, 100%.
Your head falls off of here.
It's all about that.
But yeah, like getting back to your fights, lad. Obviously, the first couple of fights that were at welter, weren't they?
Yeah.
And like, obviously, you're not a welterweight.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you had like a bit of a mixed thing. You're a welterweight, didn't you?
Yeah. So I had some wins, losses, everything like that, and I think the biggest thing is just, I think those are invaluable experiences, though. I think you definitely learn more from your losses, and those are the kind of things you want to have before you get to the UFC and everything, just so you can kind of have that experience, have some of those setbacks, and learn how to be able to persevere and work through it. And I think for me, even like growing up, you know, wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu, like there's so much parity in that because you're competing so much, it's impossible to win, 60 to 100 times straight. You know what I mean? So you're going to take losses here and there, and you got to be able to take the next best thing, keep working. And I think too, the other thing is, a lot of time when you have losses or you have setbacks in your career, especially now with social media, and like there's always people in your ear like, you need to switch up, and you need to change everything, or you need to get all new coaches, or you need to train a totally different way, and you need to totally change your style, or you need to do all this. And I think a lot of it is, you know, you got to a certain point for a reason. Yeah, do you have to make adjustments and stuff? Sure, but I think, you know, you see people changing gyms all the time, or you see like they're trying to change a whole new style, or trying to do this whole different S&C programming, or you know what I mean, this whole new thing. And I think sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel with all that kind of stuff, and you just got to stay the course and just keep working through. You know, you were a professional almost 10 years before you made it to the UFC.
Yeah,
you know?
nearly, something like that, like 9 years, something like that. I'm the same as you there, though. I don't say. Obviously, losing's horrible, lad. No one wants to lose. It's like someone in your family has just died when you lose.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%.
The feeling that you have, but you don't lose, you learn. Like, you win or you learn. It's one of the two. But the amount of times I had that over the years, obviously, I've only ever lost 3 fights. But every time I've lost, people have been like, oh, why don't you go over to a gym in America, lad? Why don't you train there? Look at all the fighters out of there, this and that. And like, why don't you go and do this? It's like, lad, I've got where I am with the team I've got. Like, I don't need to change anything. Just because one thing went wrong in a fight doesn't mean that you have to change your whole career up and start drastically changing things. That's what people from the outside looking in don't see. But there are people that fucking watch Floyd Mayweather and think you should have a 50-0 record.
Yeah,
know what I mean? People that watch boxing and they go, oh, he's shit because he's lost a fight. Doesn't work like that in MMA, as you know.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about entertainment, right? That's what sporting is, and it's all about putting on the best fight you can. Obviously, it's all about fight IQ and everything like that. But you know, there's no point to go ankle biting, taking somebody down and just sitting there holding on, you know, and everything. Like, you want to look for the finishes and you want to do all that sort of stuff. And if you're competing against the best guys you can compete against, and you're fully challenging yourself, you might have, you know, obviously you're going to go in there with the intention of you're going to beat them and everything like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes stuff goes sideways, whatever. But you want to put yourself in the hardest fights. You want to compete against the best. If you want to be the best, it just is what it is.
Yeah, you've got to beat the best.
Yeah, it just happens like that. So, invaluable experience though. And that's because I think even now, it's sometimes with the Contender Series or some like Contender, or just in general, you see guys, there's no point being 10-0 beating 10 cans.
Yeah, and you see that a lot on stuff like the Contender Series. People with brilliant records, but then when you look at their opponent's records,
yeah, you look at the Tapology or whatever.
They
Yeah.
beat people like 2-17 and 1-4 and fucking 7-38. You know what I mean? You're like, what are you even doing fighting people like that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what you know, when you're fighting, you want to fight, you want to compete against the best. So that's what makes you want to wake up and work hard in the mornings. Why would you want to beat somebody that you didn't think could beat you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You want the challenge.
You never want to go into a fight like, I know I'm going to win this. Like,
yeah.
Knowing that the other person's shit.
Yeah, 100%.
But lad, as we were saying, you fought at welterweight. Thinking back now, I mustn't have realised how big of a lightweight I was, because when you first said I'm moving down to lightweight, I was like, oof, that cut's not going to be good on him, mate. Is he going to be able to do it? Know what I mean? But then now he's just told us he was drinking Mexican Coke every night. So now we know why he was fighting at 170. But since you've moved down to lightweight, obviously on Cage Warriors, you've won every fight, haven't you?
Yeah. I felt really good at lightweight, and especially when you can have the full camp and be able to have the full experience of being able to, especially working with like Paul Reed, getting dialed in with like just even the mindset of like performance nutrition, right? Not thinking of like doing a full camp isn't a weight cut. That's like, you know what I'm saying? That's where you see people that are like, oh, he just cut like 30 pounds or like whatever, and trying to make it sound like he cut 30 pounds like 2 days. Like that's not how it works. They're like, oh, this person walks around at 100, you know, but it's good for like social media, like clickbaiting and like all that sort of stuff. But like, that's not what's going in. If somebody's doing a 12-week camp, they're not all of a sudden the last 2 days just 30 pounds lighter than they were 12 weeks. You know what I mean? And
it's gradual.
Yeah, it's like that slow descent. And then, like you said, just building that confidence over that time of, I know even though I'm stressing about it and having the doubts or whatever, I know I'm going to make the weight, and just being more comfortable being at a lower weight class, and even just feel better. Like when you're sparring around and you can feel like, sometimes you feel like, oh, like when you're bigger, like, yeah, I have the extra muscle, but like even just how your cardio feels, or just being able to, like, the extra flexibility in your muscles. Yeah, the speed.
I notice it because obviously, as everyone likes to point out, I get a little bit fat, you know what I mean? And I'll be honest, I feel I have a bit more power when I'm a bit fatter, but my speed and my reactions aren't as good as they normally are when I'm like walking around about 185. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like you feel it yourself. You know what I mean? You don't need all these dickheads on the internet telling you.
Yeah, it's just crazy too, like what your body's capable of, and I think it just adds like a whole another layer when, you know, obviously for you, you know, you're in the spotlight, so everybody definitely likes to comment and like
nitpicks on everything.
yeah, they're nitpicking on everything, but you know, you got a really great team around you, and you know, you've obviously done this for so long, like you know you're gonna make the weight.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're just fat all the time,
Yeah.
like you know what I'm saying. And for me, like being able to see what your camps are like firsthand, and being able to train with you and spar with you all the time, and see like even on the weekends where you're like almost like a half marathon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're doing like
Just
your
getting out
long
to do the
runs
run.
and you know doing all that sort of stuff. It's not, oh, he's not Chris Griffin all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what everyone's like. Oh, he's fat. He's just like Chris Griffin. I don't know how he's winning these fights. And it's like, you know.
Well, I think of that episode of South Park, lad, where it's World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
the fat fella, just like that. Yeah. I think of him, lad, the big fat slot. It's like that on his keyboard with his hand thing on. Yeah, I get some hydration and need a drink.
Yeah.
But obviously we're moving on to, like, you won all your fights at lightweight on Cage Warriors, and then before you fought on Contender Series, was that one in Manchester?
Yeah, I fought in Manchester.
So that was a first round knockout, wasn't it?
No, it was a first round submission.
Sub.
All my fights at lightweight on Cage Warriors, I think I've gotten subs.
Have you?
Yeah. Which was funny because like before when I was like fighting at welter and like everything like that, I was getting like TKOs, knockouts and stuff. And then when I moved down,
I don't know why. I think I was thinking of that fight where you fucking dropped him in like the first 15 seconds or something.
Oh, that was at welter.
That one at welter.
Yeah, that was at the Indigo. Yeah. That's when I fought with Nathan Fletcher. Yeah.
But as we said, everyone who watched your fight, lad, was entertained. Dana said it himself after it, and you took the momentum into your next fight. You won on Cage Warriors, and now the momentum's brought you back to Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah, it's awesome now. I get to have a full camp and like fully prepare and do everything like that. And so I think it's cool that I've already been there before. I know what to expect.
Yeah.
And everything like that. And each fight, you know, I think you learn something from every fight, right? You already had like 25 pro fights, but you can always pull something new, and like just you're always learning and being able to get those extra repetitions in, and that's just another weight cut, like, you know, another little tally mark down of like so then when you're panicking, you're like, well, I got 5 times, this many times, you know, and everything like that. And so to have the full summer to train basically and get ready, excited for the opportunity.
I think for you as well, obviously, where you've done it before, it's like pressure's off. Where you've done that one and you took it on that short notice and you just got in there and fought, you had a lot of pressure on your shoulders, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, am I going to perform? It's going to be this, it's going to be that. Now you know exactly what the feeling is. You've been there, you've done that.
That's what, it's a trip too with that, is because it's like such a different experience. Like I saw somebody saying like the best analogy is like it's the most intense job interview in the world, because there's no like they're not announcing it, there's no crowd. So as soon as you push the doors open, you walk into the cage, other guy walks in the cage, and you guys just start fighting. Like
don't just even get announced.
Yeah, there's no announcing, no nothing.
No walkout music or...
No walkout music, nothing. It's just the most like, it would basically just be like if you were gonna have a scrap with somebody at school, like as soon as I see you at 3 o'clock,
see you outside the school gates.
Yeah, on site. That's basically what the Contender Series is, on site. I'm gonna walk in, no music, no nothing, no introductions, no pleasantries. I'm just going in. As soon as that cage door shuts, we're just swinging.
That's completely different to like my last few fights, because I've walked out second, lad, the last few fights, and I'm stood in the cage for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, lad, before we end up throwing a punch at each other. You know what I mean? I get in there, and as you know, they leave my song on a little bit, so I'm standing there for a bit. Then my opponent walks out. Then they get everyone out the cage, just the cameras. Then they announce me. Then they announce them. Then the ref says something. Then they get the cameras out. Then we fucking fight. You know what I mean? With that, it's the opposite. It's just in the cage. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like, I think just the pacing with the, like, not having the announcements, it actually does kind of make a little bit of a difference. Like as soon as you walk in there and you start going. What's crazy is boxing though, where there's like 40 people in the ring there. They got like full posses and everything.
It's like a 15-minute intro lap before they even fight.
Yeah, and that's the whole other thing.
Stand there to get cold.
There's only what, like 4 people. Like even like the way boxing cards are structured are just totally different than like an MMA card. Like just some of like the bigger, like when they go to like Dublin, Manchester, like especially on like Cage Warriors, sometimes there gets up to like 15. You know. You
Yeah, imagine with like Cage Warriors, it's like the UFC. That's another thing where it gets you ready for the UFC. Cage Warriors like the UFC, where once that fight finishes, you're going out. It's boom, boom, boom. It's not like, oh yeah, you're fighting at this certain time, no matter what. No, when the fight before you finishes, you best be ready to walk out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's what the UFC is like, lad. The UFC is like just before the bell's about to go for the fight before, or as soon as the finish happens, I'm standing in the back waiting to go out. Know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it can throw you off, especially with the pacing, because you want to peak, right? Like you don't want to get like too warm and then all of a sudden you get cold and then you're like, oh shit, or like even sometimes too, like with the walkouts and everything where there's so much excitement and so much adrenaline. There's a full arena. You're like jumping out and you're all like, and then you're waiting for the other guy to come in and then kind of standing there.
Having an adrenaline dump.
Yeah, having an adrenaline
dump. Shit. Lad, I think I have had one of them against Tony, lad, to be honest. It was like, got out there waiting for him to come out, and then the first round I tried to fucking knock him out. Proper put everything into it. Second round, I was like, little bit. And then the start of the third, I was like, what, I'm fucked here, mate. And then the Chandler fight was different. When the third round was starting, I felt fresh. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Feel good. Like, it's just certain things can just sway in different ways.
Yeah.
But obviously you've got the Contender coming back up. What date is it you're on this year?
September 9th.
So that's that like the 3rd week or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's like the 3rd or 4th week, and it's
yeah,
like,
because
it starts in August.
Yeah, it starts
in August.
Yeah, mid-August.
Well, who are you fighting in that?
Fighting Samuel Sanchez from Brazil.
Samuel Sanchez?
Yeah.
Sounds Mexican. He does know that he had.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, with the Contender, you always there's no guarantees, you know, always stuff with visas and, you know, pullouts and everything like that.
Yeah,
but,
anything can happen. You don't know if you're actually fighting him.
Yeah, anything can always happen. So you always just got to be in camp, ready, trained. You know what I'm saying? There's always
But for now, you have a name.
Yeah.
You've got the date. Know what I mean? What can you tell us about him?
So basically with him, he's younger. He's 22 years old. He's had 11 pro fights, and you know, anyone that's going to be on the Contender is going to be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
They're there for a reason. But I mean, I think all the preparation, having already been on the Contender, and all of my experience on Cage Warriors, and you know, all the training I've had, I definitely feel ready for the opportunity. And you know, there's not too much footage out on him and everything like that.
There never is with them Brazilians.
Yeah, it's just kind of tough, right? Like you said, like on some of the other shows, like there's not the big backlog.
Yeah.
Right? Like with Cage Warriors, you can go back and you can see any fight.
Cage Warriors, you can go back and watch me get choked out when I was 18, lad.
You can go on UFC Fight Pass and you can see basically any event ever. So there's not too much stuff out, but you know, at the end of the day,
it's only 22 though, and he's had 11 fights.
Yeah, but I think I'm pretty sure he's got into it at like 17,
yeah,
18,
probably has. But he still
debut.
Seems a bit raw though, being 22. It's a bit young to be on the Contender Series. I look back at myself now at 22 and think, wow, what a child. You know what I mean? I look back at myself, as I say now, and think, Jesus, I thought I was the best in the world, but I was only a baby.
Yeah, what's crazy is you've been in the UFC now almost 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. I got signed in March 21 and had my first fight in September 21. So yeah, basically 4 years.
And that's what I'm sure there's even a huge difference for you just from how you feel now as just even to that point. So then to even go all the way back.
Yeah, to go all the way back, lad. I look back at myself now on videos, lad, when I'm hitting pads with Chris or sparring with Chris, and I'm like, lad, I used to think I could box. You know what I mean? I'm looking at these videos like, oh my God, you were so bad. Why did you ever go into fights and try and knock people out? No, you were never good enough for that. And I tried to do that on Cage Warriors in main events, lad, against people that had better boxing than me. You look back now and just think, oh my God, what was I doing? But obviously you learn, as we were saying before, you learn from these things and you move forward. And That's what we all do. That's what you're going to have done from your last Contender Series fight, and you're going to come out and fucking win this next Contender Series fight and join me in the UFC 155-pound division.
100%.
That's what's happening, lad.
Yeah.
Definitely. We know that.
Know that.
So sorry, Samuel. Unlucky kid. You're going to get your head punched in. My man's going to take your head off. But yeah, we've touched on everything there, really, haven't we?
Yeah, I think
I've
so.
chatted too much shit to you. I don't think don't think there's anything much more that you can come out with. But yeah, as we were saying before with the OVS, Chasen's waiting for you in his DMs. Don't worry, when he knocks this kid out, Chasen's waiting for you in his DMs. Well, so subs this kid. But if any is a avid campers like my man here, Chasen, or first timers just like me, get on OVS, and when you get in the checkout, Paddy 10 for a little 10% off on me. Thank me all you want. You know how it is. But Chasen, is there anything you want to say, or any sponsors or people you want to thank before we finish up?
I just want to thank everyone down at MMA Fight Academy, Jake, Mark, all my training partners down there, and all friends, family that are always supporting me. And thank you to you and everyone at NextGen that took me in right from the very beginning when I started MMA journey, and to be here now and be here with you out here in Malibu.
Yeah.
Pretty great. So appreciate everything you've done for me. You're like a big brother for me. Always looked out for me.
Yes,
and appreciate you, brother.
You know that. Thank you. Well, yeah, that's another episode in the books of Chatting Pony with Paddy The Baddy. We're gonna chill now in our OVS gear and me Under Armour rig out, and before he starts fight camp properly, me and Chasen are gonna go and have a Malibu in Malibu. I had to get that in at the end there. I had to get that in at Malibu. Yes, Chief.
Thanks, brother.